Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Radio Manifesto, The Good Life. I have the pleasure today of introducing you to Daniel Levin. Danny walked away from an opportunity to run $1 billion business to hitchhike around the world to find happiness and inner peace. He studied in a seminary 5 years and left one day before becoming a rabbi, and he has lived as a monk in a monastery for 10 years. As Director of Business Development, he grew Hay House from $3 million a year in sales to $100 million a year in revenue. He is a rare blend of businessman and mystic who sees what others do not see. It has been this one quality, more than any other, that has thrown him into some of the most exclusive boardrooms to help companies innovate new ways of finding solutions when the old ways stop working. He is also the author of The Mosaic, a life-changing fable that invites people to listen to those others do not hear and to see the situations in their life differently. And I have to say, on a personal level, my conversations with Danny have always been very interesting. I don't know him a long time, but there is a connection there which I could not explain that I felt from the first moment. The day after we first spoke, he sent me a message with a short story, which he did not know, but that was one of the first stories that changed my perspective on life and how I dealt with the negative emotions that had built up inside of me for many years. I asked him about that, why he felt the need to send me that story. And you should hear his answer because it really gives insight into who this man is. But even more incredible, one of the other things that make me think of this man as a soul brother, which is the only way that I can think of defining this, at the end of the interview, he explains about a lesson that he learned from Tibetan monks. And what's so interesting about the timing of this is that I've just been reading a book by Voltaire, Candide. And in that book, the main character has a mentor in life. And that mentor has the same life lesson that Danny shares with us from the Tibetan monks to us in this podcast. So I urge you to listen from the beginning to the end. I know you will enjoy everything that he has to say. And I know that because I enjoyed this interview so much. I'll see you on the other side. Hey, Danny, how are you doing?
I am so well during this time of isolation that we are now experiencing called COVID-19, where the world is on pause. I
Yeah?
am absolutely enjoying these because there is a change that I have known come time, and I feel it's coming now. And that's not down to downplay all of the pain and the sickness and the death happen, but also to highlight these amazing moments where when we are quiet, nature is coming back to its pollution, vanishing. Animals are returning to their lands. Fish and dolphins are swimming in canals they haven't been in. And it
Yeah.
makes me just so excited to share with people when that same thing happens internally, when we remove the noise that's inside of us, those same miraculous things will happen within us as well. And it doesn't take long. Look how short it's been for these changes to be happening. It's amazing. So a long answer, I'm doing fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, well, no, that was a great answer. So many people, focus on look at only the negative. And
Yeah.
for me personally, I mean, in this time, on the one hand, in the past 2 years, I've gotten so used to traveling that the first few days, I was like, oh my God, I can't travel anymore. It was annoying me. And then I changed perspective and I was like, you know what? This just lets me appreciate even more the day-to-day that I usually have. So, I took it around, and each day that passes, I literally, I'm even more thankful and grateful for the life that I've
Yes.
built myself in the end, you know?
Yes. Yes.
So,
You know,
yeah.
Ludwig, it feels to me like when I wrote this book, The Mosaic, one of the things that I
Mm,
realized is that it took me a long time to write it because I was trying to write what I thought the characters were going to say. And about 2.5 years into it, which I thought would take about 3 months to write, of the book sort of disrupting itself, diluting
mm.
itself, dissolving, corrupting files, doing all sorts of things. I finally sat with the book itself and I said, what are you doing? What are you trying to say to me? And one by one, the characters, just like I'm having a conversation with you now, it wasn't like a metaphysical thing. I just heard the
Yeah, yeah.
characters in the book speak to me. And they said to me, we don't want to say what you're saying. Listen to what we're saying and just write what we're saying. And when I did that, the book was done in about 6 weeks.
Wow. Okay, so
So
hold on. We jumped
go.
way ahead of ourselves, though.
Okay,
Who
sorry.
are you? What are you?
Who am I? That's what I'm trying to figure that out. No. People have been asking me that, Ludwig, my whole life. I. Here's one thing that I know.
Yes.
I have been able to mix with the richest people in the world, not as people that sat in an audience, but as people that sat in their homes,
Mm-hmm.
know their children or know their parents.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the luxury of learning from them, talking to them, having conversations with them, engaging them. And I've also had the opportunity to sit on street corners with the poorest of the poor.
Mm.
And one of the things that I realized, Ludwig, is that every single person, no matter how rich they are, no matter what color their skin, no matter what border they live behind, no matter what occupation they practice or religion they're a part of, wants inherently the same thing. They want to be loved and accepted. They want to be listened to and heard. They want to be acknowledged and validated. Not one person in the course of my almost 65 years on this planet has said to me, Danny, I want you to agree. So when I realized that that's all people want, I realized I could do that. I could be somebody that loves and accepts another person. I could be that listens to another person and really hears what they're saying. I could be someone that acknowledges and validates each individual for what they believe.
Yeah.
And doing that,
Yeah.
what I found is disagreements dissolve. Hatred varies. And all it takes,
So,
we don't have to take a college degree or be a part of a religious cult or an organization. All we need to do is do those 3 simple things.
so why don't you start? Because I have a comment about that.
Okay.
But tell us a bit about your history, because what you just said now, that you had the privilege of spending time with people on street corners, but also with incredibly wealthy people.
Yes.
It's something that very few people have done both extremes of, right?
Yes. Maybe.
So, well, I know I've had the privilege also of actually sitting with both.
Yes.
And I actually had an incredible, you know what? When we first started speaking, I told you that there was something in your story that, I felt was very similar. Okay.
Yes.
And what was funny was that after we actually exchanged life stories, as I was telling it to you, I was like, wait, hold on. It's not that similar. But then I finally understood what it was. We've had, both of us, the privilege of being on, well, not being maybe, but of seeing both sides.
Yes.
The extremely privileged individuals, and also the people who have nothing. And I think that that's what I took from what I'd read on your story.
Yes.
As what we have in common. So why don't you tell us about your history? How did you
Okay.
get to the point where you're at right now? Yeah.
So I think the most consequential moment in my life was my parents passing away 2 years apart on the same day. My dad,
How old were you at the time?
I was 13 when my dad passed away and 15 when my mom passed away. So I was a kid.
Yeah, that's young.
And I had the opportunity. We grew up in a lower middle class family. My dad was someone who had a heart of gold and wanted to give to everybody, but had
Mm.
nothing to give. So I remember he died with one black suit in his closet and a mountain full of debt. And my mom and he had such a love affair that she chose to die 2 years later on exactly the same day of breast
Wow.
cancer. So she ended her life, both of them died on July 4th, which in America is Independence Day. And so
Right, yeah.
the message that I got from that was my mom and dad in their last dying moments were talking to me about independence. But unfortunately, I learned the wrong message. The message I thought they were telling me, be independent, learn to stand up for yourself, do things that you need to do, be strong and do what you have to do. It wasn't until about a year and a half ago, I was sitting in conversation with somebody and I said, hold it, I got this all wrong. My mom and dad died on Independence Day. They weren't born on Independence Day. What their message to me was really that independence is death. It's not life. Coming together in community, forming relationships, that's what brings life. And it's what the Mosaic
Wow.
is all about. So, long story already too long. When I passed away, my mom's sister lived in a different state in the middle of the United States. We lived on the East Coast.
Okay.
And when I passed away, we went to live with them.
Mm.
And she had married a man who had become a household name. And so I
Okay.
went from a lower middle class family to an elite upper class family. And I got the beautiful gift of being able to see a life that I would never in a million years have seen before had I stayed in my family and
Mm.
nothing had happened. So as bad as the situation was, it opened up a world for me that I never even knew was possible.
Yeah.
And whereas everybody in the world was fighting to have that world, what I only realized years later as I wrote the Mosaic is the reason I walked away from it was because I wasn't looking for that world. I was looking for the place when I went to the adults and I asked them, where are my parents? They told me they were in a place called heaven. So I set out in search of the place called heaven, just like I did in the book called The Mosaic.
Mm.
And when I listened to the stories of the people that I met, each one of them made me realize the person that I initially saw isn't at all who they were. And after having that happen to me over and over and over again, I realized that the world I see isn't the world that is. It's just the world I see. And just like in my book, The Mosaic, when I realized that, I looked one moment over to my right and I saw a monk there unzipping the sky and inviting me to walk into a parallel reality that I had never known existed. And it was there that I met the wise one, who is the keeper of the Mosaic. And I won't say too much more because I want people to buy the book on
Of
Amazon
course.
and read it, right? But
Of
along
course.
the way, some of the things that I turned down was I had the opportunity to run $1 billion corporation. I had the opportunity to be the protege of the man who started organizational psychology. He wanted me to start it with him because he saw something in me. I walked away from one day away from being ordained a rabbi in Jerusalem, Israel. I walked away. I walked away from living in a monastery for 10 years and sharing the life of meditation and yoga with people. I walked away from a company that I helped build from $3 million to $100 million. All because what I realized only afterwards, after I wrote the Mosaic, is they were not the heaven I was seeking. All I was seeking was what one picture that I had in memory of my parents showed me. It was the picture on my bar mitzvah, on the day that I went from being a boy to a man.
Mhm.
And it was of my mom and dad holding me from behind. And the sheer love, unconditional love that I could feel from them in that moment, in that picture, reminded me of what I was looking for. I was looking for that love and acceptance. I was looking to be heard and validated. I was looking to understand, why do these things happen? And it wasn't found, as beautiful as the opportunities I was given on earth were. They were not the answers to that question. I studied psychology in school. I traveled around. I hitchhiked around the world. I looked everywhere for it. And you know the ancient
Yeah.
story of, no matter how far you look, until you see what's right in front of your eyes, you'll never see
Yeah.
anything.
So I have a question for you.
Please.
A day after we spoke initially, yeah,
Yeah.
a day or two, I don't remember. You sent me a story. Now, the story, I mean, I'll keep the story short. It's pretty much two monks who reach a river or a stream, right? And they find a woman there who needs
Yep.
help crossing the river. One of them picks her up, and this is despite, their oath not to touch women, right? Picks
Yep.
her up, walks her across the stream, right? And
Yep.
puts her down and goes. The other monk says nothing, okay? And after hours, though, the other monk says to him, how did you do that? I mean, it goes against our oaths. And the first monk says, what do you mean? I left her there by the stream. You're the one who's still holding her in your
Yes.
hand. That's a story I read years ago. I believe it was in Siddhartha, by Hermann Hesse.
Yep.
And that story is a story which stayed with me for years. I loved that story. Really
Yes.
loved it.
Beautiful.
Why did you send me that one specifically?
I
It
don't.
is. So why did you send that one?
I don't remember. My intuition works in the moment, but there was
Okay.
something. There must have been something in our conversation that I was feeling, that either it would help you to understand me better, or that there was something that I felt and something you were doing that wanted to invite either one of us. Maybe it was an invitation to myself that I was sharing with you, to let go of everything that I believe. Because one of the big practices that I do when I work with people, or I sit with people, or I do it really with myself more than anybody, is this whole idea of taking a look at what we believe and then just letting it all go. Letting everything that's in us vanish, like pushing it to the side, letting it go, dropping it all, and inviting this fresh new energy to come in. So having been a monk for all those years, I still feel like I'm a monk. I still believe that the most sacred relationship I have is the relationship with my God. And I sit for hours, many times a day. Sometimes I'll sit for 20 minutes. Sometimes I'll sit for hours. But every day for the last 45 years, I've sat in meditation and haven't missed a day. And yet there's something so exquisitely beautiful about letting go of everything that we think we are. Because in this moment especially, we're in COVID-19. In this moment especially, we're being given a pause. We're being asked to let go of what we've done, because there's some fresh new energy that wants to come into our lives now, and that wants to help us to see the world in a way that we've never seen the world before. And as long as we keep holding on to what it is we believe, we'll never be able to go outside of what we believe. Because what we believe, just like when I saw those characters, what we believe is just what we believe. It isn't what is.
See, so that's funny. The way you and I take that story is so different.
Tell me.
Okay, so for me, that story, see, for a long time, due to the childhood that I had, which today has made me who I am in the good sense, right? I mean,
Yep.
Of course, I have my faults, right? But I like who I am today, and it is thanks to the lessons I learned. But before I learned those lessons, I had a lot of anger inside of me, a lot of resentment, a lot of negative feelings in general. I don't need to go into the list of them, but take most negative feelings, and I had a lot of them. And for me, that lesson was to, whenever I felt something, instead of fighting it, instead of saying, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this rage and this resentment, because when you fight it, what happens is that it stays with you longer, okay? Because, it's fighting back.
Yeah.
And instead, and this is something I learned also with the Russian martial arts, when you get punched in Russian martial art, you're not supposed to flex your muscles and try, to stop the punch from coming in. You need to let it in, right? Make your muscles as soft as possible, let it in, and it just goes through your body, and then it leaves. And same thing with the negative emotions. And that, to me, was the lesson that I learned from that story.
Wow. So I love that. And I love how beautiful the world in the same story speaks to people. And part of the reason why it's so important to just sit and with people and listen to what they say is for the perspective that comes out through it and the discussion that follows. And the way you see it is so beautifully true for you. And I get knowledge from knowing the way you see it. And I so appreciate you sharing that. For me, a lot of the things that I deal with around the shoulds of what I think I should be or should do, or how I should react when something happens, those are the things that now I'm just letting go of. I'm just saying, what if there were no shoulds? What if whatever comes to me is speaking to me, and the only job that I have is to listen to what it's saying? And when I hear what it's saying, it doesn't need to intensify. Can I share a story with you, very personal?
Of course. I welcome it. Thank you.
You're so welcome. I have the honor of having a 30-year-old developmentally delayed daughter. Now, my daughter is the greatest gift that I've ever had, but there have been so many moments in those 30 years that I did not think that was true. I felt cursed. Yeah. I felt like this is the hardest thing that could ever happen, because also my wife passed away of cancer. So I've been raising my daughter for the last 26 years on my own. Wow. And there were times I'm a man. So I remember saying to my wife, I'm never going to change a diaper. So, just as long as you know that if we have kids, I'm never going to change a diaper. Well, she's 30 years old and still doesn't control her bowels. So I've been changing diapers for 30 years. And they say man plans and God laughs. But my daughter doesn't speak like you and I speak. And yet, because we've been together so much, most of the time I can understand what she's saying. But sometimes I don't. And when I don't understand what she's saying, then she starts to scream. And sometimes, to her credit, when she screams what she's saying, that she changes the way she says it a little bit, which makes me understand it. But most times not. Most times it's just now her yelling and I still don't understand it. And she's getting herself more and more frustrated. And when I still don't understand it, she'll throw a tantrum. And we can be in the middle of a restaurant. We can be at friends' homes. We can be walking in the street. We can be driving in a car. We can be at home and alone. It doesn't matter. She'll throw the tantrum. And when the tantrum doesn't work for her, then she'll come at me and she'll either try and rip my shirt or bite me. And Ludwig, this was going on for maybe 5, 10, 15 times a day for about 15 years.
Wow, and that's a lot.
It's a long time. And I thought I was somewhat intelligent, and I thought I could try and figure this out. And finally I looked at her and I said, Alisa, I love you so much. And you know that I want so badly to understand what you're saying. Can you try and talk to me in a way that doesn't use your words? Because I can't understand your words. And from the midst of her rage, she started laughing uncontrollably. And she said, as clear in English as you could possibly say, I am Daddy. And I said, wow, what the heck are you talking about? You are Daddy. What do you mean? What are you doing? And she took her forefinger and she pointed to her brain. And I said, okay, you little son of a gun. Have you been putting thoughts in my head all this time? I thought that you were doing it. I just didn't trust it. She said, yes, Daddy. And we started laughing if you would have asked me to look back how long we were laughing, just continually feeding each other's laughter, right now I would say it was about a month, because that's how long it seemed, but it was probably only 5 minutes or so. But we were
Which
just
is a lot when you're laughing.
laughing a long time, right? We were
Yeah.
laughing uncontrollably with each other. And so I said to her, "You little son of a gun, now you know, whenever I don't understand you, I'll listen to you in my mind." From that point on, she has never tantrumed, she has never attacked, and she's never screamed.
Incredible.
What I realized
That
was
is,
that
yeah.
what I realized in that is every single person I know does the exact same behavior pattern. When they speak and they don't get heard, they yell. When they yell and they don't get heard, they create a scene. And when they create a scene and they don't get heard, they destroy. That could be shooting in a square. That could be destroying an initiative. That could be trying to kill a person's reputation. That could be ending a marriage. That could be doing whatever they do. And it's so important for us to listen beyond the words that people are saying and try and get to a place where we actually understand what it is people are trying to say and just love and accept them there. That is the key to ending hatred, disruption, wars, all sorts of problems. It's so friggin' easy.
So can I share with you a story? Not as
Please,
personal. Yeah.
please.
I was helping a friend, a young friend. He's younger than my brother. He was just, starting out doing, in France, you have these, markets, right? With a lot of antiques, and you have people, who just sell the extra stuff that they have at home. And he was taking stuff from various different places, going to the markets and selling them. Now, since I have a big truck, then, I would drive him around, right? Because he didn't have at the time enough money to buy his own truck.
Yep.
And one morning, I think it was like 5:30 in the morning, we had just put everything in the truck. We were about to go, and we see someone fall over on the sidewalk.
Wow.
Okay. So, I stopped the car. We go over to the guy. He takes out a bottle of water that he had with him. And we figure, we're going to give him some water, maybe a little something to eat, see that he's okay, and worst case scenario, if he needs it, we take him to the hospital quickly. Okay.
Yep.
The guy wasn't drunk. He simply fell over. Okay. He was most definitely homeless. And the thing is, he had a hole in his throat, like someone who had cancer.
Wow.
And so I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity of speaking with someone like that, but understanding them can be very hard.
Yes.
Because the sound, that we make comes from the way that we put our lips and our mouth and our tongue.
The reverberation.
So exactly. When the sound comes just from a hole in your throat, it's really very, very hard to understand.
Yeah.
But, he was talking, and he essentially he was explaining, how bad he felt, that he had fallen bad times. That much I could understand. You could understand just by his tone of voice and his body language.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was trying to be supportive in the way I answered. We left him with some water, with some food. We got in the truck. We went. He didn't need anything else. Okay.
Yeah.
And my friend turns around to me and says, "I didn't understand a word he said." I look at him, neither did I. He's like, "But you had an entire conversation." I said, "No, I let him speak."
Yes.
And I let him understand he wasn't understood. But that's as far as it went. And he was like, "Why?" I said, "Well, most people, that's just what they want. They want to be understood. They want to be listened to.
Yeah.
They don't want answers. They don't want you to give
100%.
them information. They just want to be listened to."
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if people listening to this got nothing more than that one message you're saying, it would be the biggest revelation we could share with people, because let's exchange stories again, if I may. And may I tell you another story?
Please.
Okay.
Oh, of course.
So amidst the beautiful people that I've met on street corners was a man by the name of Corey. Corey was a homeless man who I was walking down the street one day, and I had something really weird happen to me. I'm sort of a weirdo if people don't know it, but I started to feel people as they were coming towards me. I'm very empathetic. And I started to feel people, and I could feel the pains in their body. And it was so painful. I felt someone's heart palpitating so quickly. And I felt the pain in someone's knee that almost made me fall to the ground. I felt back pain in someone that made me feel like crazy. And finally, I just thought, I got to get away from this, because it's this constant stream of people heading towards me. And I'm just feeling pain after pain after pain after pain. And I went to the corner to sit down, and the guy that I went to sit down was a homeless guy, and he said, "You can't sit here. This is my place. I own this." I said, "Brother, I don't want anything from you. I just need to sit for a minute. Like anything you make, I'll give you any, double it. And it's here. And so just let me sit with you for a moment." And so he did, and then his skepticism became we started to talk to each other as he could feel just it was safe. And I asked him, "Corey, if there was one thing you would want from this world, and one thing you would want to say to this world that would make the world lean into being a better place. You see so much as you sit here on your street corner. What would you say to people?" And he said, "I would ask people to spend 10 minutes of their life and go up to somebody they don't know, ask them how they are, and just listen."
Wow.
And I said, "Corey, that's amazing that's what you ask. I mean, you're homeless. You want to ask for a home. You want to ask food. You want to ask that people treat each other better. You want to ask for world peace. You're asking for just people to spend 10 minutes in the course of a lifetime." I said, 10 minutes in the course of a lifetime isn't very much. Why would you just ask that? And he said, "Danny, I have to tell you, about 2 weeks ago, I was sitting here, and I was at the lowest point that I've ever been at. I sit here and people beat me up. They spit on me. They kick me. I can feel their hatred of me. And I thought, what am I doing here? I'm not serving anybody, any purpose. I have no reason for my life. I'm a nuisance to the world. This evening," and I was thinking, that evening when it gets dark, I'm going to go around the corner and I'm just going to end my life. And as soon as I had that thought, not 2 minutes later, a man came up to me and put his hand on my shoulder. And he asked me, "How are you, brother?" And a tear came to my eye. I said, "I'm not doing very well." And the man sat down with me. And he said, "Tell me, it only took 10 minutes for me to tell him what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But that 10 minutes changed my life. I thought, I can't kill myself now, because somebody cares enough about me to act and listen to what I have to say. So I can't just end my life now." And he said, that man has no idea the effect that he had on me. And I said, and Corey, the man that I met with, has no idea that he is the reason why I want to set out on a year-long journey around America. I was about to do it May 1st until COVID came.
Right.
And
So
sit with people to listen to them.
Oh, okay. Wow. I have, there's something that happened to me, which I think you might appreciate. Over the course of a few weeks, in which I was having a horrible time. And then I want to ask you a little bit more about your the tour that you intend to do around America. But the during these few weeks where I was going really through really bad time, two things happened to me which really showed me how perspective it's really a mindset, the way you see life and the way you approach it. On the one hand, there was a family event where I'm very distantly related to an extremely wealthy family, and two of them came over, and for my brother's bar mitzvah, and so I heard a little bit about their life story and the things. And one of the things that I took from there was that when one of them was younger, there were a lot of thoughts of, life is so bad. There are so many things that I'm missing out on because of things that I can't do, due to security things, anything like that. Okay. And it took her really a long time to get to the point where, what? I have a lot of privilege and other things, so let me take advantage of that.
Yes.
And I remember, sitting with this woman and thinking to myself, my God, you were born into the utmost privilege financially, right?
Yep.
And to think that, you went through a hard time. I mean, compare your life to others. But and she said to me, she said, don't judge too easily. The money I had, the emotions, though, we all have to deal with that.
Yes.
And 2 weeks after that conversation, because I was thinking about it, but I had a hard time understanding it. 2 weeks after that, I remember I dropped my girlfriend off at the bus station, and I was starting to walk away to go back towards the car, and apparently I must have looked horrible, because a homeless guy that was there looks at me and says, "Brother, it'll be better." I look at him, I'm like, "What?" He says,
Wow.
"It'll get better, trust me."
Huh?
And I look at him and say, don't take this the wrong way, but you're homeless, right? He's like, "Yep." I'm like, "And you're telling me it's going to be better?" He said, "Yes, you just have to decide."
Wow. Love it.
It was incredible. I mean, this guy on the street with nothing, right? And
Yeah.
compared to me, I had a little bit more than him, or to this woman who had a lot more than either of us. And this guy was just able to see things in a very healthy perspective,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And that's one of those stories, one of those events that will stay with me. It reminds me whenever I'm going through a bad day, I'm like, if a homeless guy can look at me and tell me it'll get better, I
Yeah.
can definitely, make that decision also.
I
Right?
remember sitting on a bus in India and moving
Yeah.
from one place that we were going to go visit to another. And it just looked
Mhm.
out my side window for just a moment. And walking in the thousands of people that were walking there, I noticed a woman. She was dressed like a beggar. She was
Okay.
poor as poor could be. But the gait of her walk was the gait of a queen. The way she moved, the steps that she took, the consciousness that I could feel in each moment as she moved was that of a queen, not of a beggar. And it made me
Wow.
realize the world that we see is not the world that is. Nothing about it. We're all wearing these costumes.
Yeah.
We're all wearing these masks. We're all playing out these parts, but that isn't who we are. Who we are at this moment is just who we are at this moment, just like I saw in every one of those characters. But beneath this moment, at the core of who we are, we're all connected and we have so much beauty, so much vitality, so much life, for so much ability to love this world into a new reality. And that's the place that I want to help people bring their lives to. We get so caught up in the periphery that we forget about the center. And the center is who we are.
That the center is who we are. The world was built for us, but on the other hand, we are nothing but sand.
Yes. Yes.
Is that what you mean, or do you mean something else?
Yeah, sort of. I just mean that. Um, so I had an interesting experience.
Okay.
I I'm so caught up in the world of my inner life that I
Mm.
really, for a lot of years, have neglected my outer body. I used to run 48 miles a week and bench press 345 pounds. And then I hurt myself and I let myself go. So now I'm overweight. I'm just this jolly old fat guy. Um, but I've let my body go. And I remember somebody
Okay.
asking me about it. And I said to them, my friend, if you had a house that you knew tomorrow was going to be destroyed,
Mm.
and one corner of your room you hadn't finished painting,
Mm.
would you go this evening and repaint and finish that room, the wall in that room? Or would you say, what's it matter? It's going to be torn down tomorrow. And most of the people that I talked to said I wouldn't fix it. I certainly would not have fixed it. My wife and a few other people I know said, no, I would actually absolutely paint it because it would bug me that it wasn't painted. and they take care of, and
Okay.
those are the people that take care of themselves. And so I use that as my rationalization for, this body's not going to go anywhere with me in a few years. Why take such beautiful care of this body? It's just a transient thing. We're made up of sand. Until I met a bunch of monks, Tibetan monks. So when I came in, they invited me back to see the completion of the sand mandala that they had created. And they were just so happy. There were 20 monks that had spent months and months and months creating this beautiful mandala. And I came and I saw it, and it was exquisite, every single part of it. You could feel the love that went into making it. And then moments later, their teacher came with a big brush in his hand and literally mixed all of the sand together, destroyed the whole mandala that they had worked on for months and months and months with one or two sweeps of his brush.
Wow.
And I went over to the brother that I was most friendly with, and I said, what did he do? Like, what's going on? And he said, don't ask me. Let me introduce you to him. And I went up to the teacher who was, you could feel his presence. He was a beautiful man. And I said, sir, please tell me, here these monks have worked for months and months together to build this beautiful creation. Why did you not let them enjoy it? Why did you not let them stay with it? Why did you not let it exist? Why did you destroy it? And he said, nothing in this world is permanent, my friend. And if we live for the results of our actions, we will always be unhappy. The beauty of what they did was in the actual creation of the mandala, not in the finished mandala. And in that moment, he disrupted my whole story of having to never paint my house again, that corner of my house, because it was going to be destroyed, of never taking care of the body because it was going to go, whether it was healthy or sick. And I still haven't really grokked that because I still haven't completely understood it. But it sits with me as a story that's lobbed over the net for me to receive when the moment is right.
So it's one of those things. I worked because I used to work every so often in life. I did pauses from what I normally do, which is sales and specializing in the financial field, and did manual labor because A, I really enjoy it, and B, it's good to tire the body a little bit. It frees up the mind also. And there was this one place, it was a salt factory. And the manager there, I would try to make things perfect. At the end of the day, you have to clean everything and put everything in place. And so we would put everything in place and we would clean, but I would go crazy, like really trying to get to the little corners and everything. And he stopped me one day. He said, it's good enough. You need to know when to let go also, when to stop, And for me at that point, it was always a never-ending balance between, on the one hand, enjoying the process and wanting to always continue on improving, but also knowing when it's good enough and to let it go. Is that something that you can relate to, or?
Yeah, yes, and it's interesting because words are so important to the stories we tell. And so I understand beautifully what you're saying, and I so appreciate it. And it's these words of good enough, or that I want it to be perfect, or that there are moments, the way I would rephrase it in language that makes sense to me, is that what if everything was perfect right in the moment that it was? What if cleaning up after we're done, we had reached the perfect moment of it being not quite done yet, not quite beautiful, but that moment was the perfect moment in order for the next moment to exist? That everything is not a beginning end, but a continuation. And that each moment in those moments is perfect unto itself. We live our lives today thinking that we have to be these superheroes, that we talk about our superpowers, and we talk about all the things that we aspire to be, when in reality, who we are is beautiful. And I do a thing with people when I ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being what you love and 1 being what you hate, where do you place the word ordinary? And most people would say ordinary is a 1 or a 2. Probably 95% of them do. When I ask them on that same scale, with 1 being what you hate and 10 being what you love, where do you place the word extraordinary? And people go, oh, God, that's a 10, a 12, a 20. We love to be extraordinary. And so I ask them, and maybe it's just a thing in the English language, but I say to them, if ordinary is something you don't want to be, why do you want to be extra of something you don't want to be? Right? I mean, how crazy is that? Because what the Mosaic taught me in writing it is that there is exquisite beauty in the ordinariness of people, but we've somehow learned that ordinary is not good. What can be more ordinary than a sunrise? So beautiful. Yeah. What can be more ordinary than buds appearing on a tree in springtime? So beautiful. What can be more ordinary than night following day and day following night? So beautiful. And in all of nature, we're the only species that wants to be other than we are. The mountain doesn't want to be the river. The cow doesn't long to be the snake. I mean, everything is contained in what it is except us. And it's because we hold these unrealistic desires. We think we have to be superhumans. We think we have to be caped characters with masks on. But that's our problem. We try so hard to have an unattainable reality be our reality, that the reality is that we feel not good enough. We feel we're never good enough to do the things we do, because we can never sustain that level of extraordinariness. It's only when extraordinaries come together that extraordinary things happen. We were never meant to do this on our own. And the more we come together and build something together, the more, it's the lesson I learned from my mom and dad passing that I misused for 60 years. It isn't in being independent that our glory comes. It's in coming together that our glory comes. And it's something that's so important for our world to see now, because we focus on our differences rather than on our similarities. We focus on all the things that keep us separate rather than the one thing that keeps us together. And that's what's so important to me. And I know we're going to give a teaser, because I know we're going to do a follow-up episode on this journey that I want to take around the world to speak with people. Because look, on the outside, all of us look so different. You're this good-looking guy sitting wherever you're sitting. I'm this old fat guy in San Diego.
No, my friend. I may be charming, but I'm not good-looking. Okay, let's put things in perspective.
I disagree. But where in the heck can we say we're similar? How is that possible? But underneath it all, there's science and quantum physics and metaphysics are telling us all the same thing, that we're not made up of these bodies. These bodies come and go. It's like a change of clothes. We're made up of an energy that infuses these bodies, and that energy is the same thing we experience in each other, and that energy moves quicker than we could even imagine, so that the air that you exhale is what I'm inhaling right this minute. We're all made up of the same energy. And when we see ourselves that way, who do we hate now? Who do we love? Who do we help? Who do we not help? We're all part of the same reality. And that's what the mosaic is. When we take all of the broken pieces, all of the scattered pieces of what was once whole, and bring them back together, not every piece connects side to side. Sometimes they just connect by the very tiniest corner to another tiny corner. Most of what pieces and the other pieces don't even come in contact with each other. But all that's important is we find one small area where they do come in contact, they do agree. And that's enough to keep the mosaic. That's the journey. That's the trip that we'll talk about in episode 2.
Beautiful. And I definitely look forward to it. For now, though, where can people find you?
If they go on my website, it's danielbrucelevin.com, and you'll put those in the show notes, I'm sure.
Of course.
And my book, The Mosaic, which I would love for people to read because it's a fable, it's a charming story. But if you allow it to, it will change the way you see your world. And that's available on Amazon all around the world.
Perfect.
It's The Mosaic by Daniel Levin.
Of course, everything will be in the show notes. And Danny, you and I are definitely scheduling a part 2 on this.
Can't wait. Thank you.
Have a great day. And here's for an audience question. How do I motivate myself to change? Now, the truth is this. Most people think that you need to motivate yourself each and every single time that you make a single little step. But that's not true. What you need to do is this. Decide what you want to achieve. Then you need to give yourself a reason. For example, when you brush your teeth, what's your reason? You want to have a good-looking smile. You want to keep your teeth healthy. Do you need to motivate yourself each and every single time that you brush your teeth? Do you go, yay, Ludo, now's the time to go brush your teeth? No, you don't do that. You know that you need to go brush your teeth, and you have an overall reason to want to do it. And so each time that it's time to go brush your teeth, you get up and you do it. You don't ask yourself the question, do I want to brush my teeth? Do I not want to brush my teeth? You simply do it because you know that it needs to be done. It's the same thing with everything else. If you want to lose weight, it's not every single time that you see a nice piece of cheese, if, for example, that's what you need to be careful of, that you need to say to yourself, no, I want to see my abs this summer. No, I want to see my abs this summer. That's not the way it works. If you need to do that each and every single time, you will never achieve anything. And the reason for that is because there's a limit to how much motivation we can give ourselves. During the times that I was working on losing a little bit of fat, whenever I saw something which I really shouldn't have, I would say to myself, okay, you know what? I know that there's a reason I told myself I can't have it. Whether I feel like keeping that or not now, it doesn't matter. There's a reason I built this plan. There's a reason I decided to do this. So even if I don't feel like it now, I still will do it. I once saw a question from someone. What are the ways I can wake up earlier? I was about to answer, well, put an alarm clock. Set it for 10 minutes earlier and 5 minutes earlier. Little by little, bring it back to the time that you want. But then I saw the next part of the question. And it said, don't give me obvious answers like setting my alarm clock earlier. And so, I'm sorry, but what other possibility is there? There is no magic trick of, let me, put a feather behind my right ear and the coffee on the left side of the bed and only one sock on, and the sock has to be a special color, and then I'll wake up earlier magically. That doesn't happen. You need to have motivation to wake up earlier when you make that decision. But once that decision is made, you don't need motivation anymore. So what do you need? You need discipline. Discipline is what keeps you going, whether you feel like it or not. Most people don't lack motivation. Ask people if they want to be millionaires. Not everybody. Most people will tell you, yes, absolutely. Okay, how many of those people are doing the work necessary to become millionaires? How many of those people are not buying that brand new TV because they already have a very good one from last year that's still working? That's the difference between motivation and discipline. Discipline doesn't need the feel-good energy behind it. Discipline, though, is what will keep you going whether motivation is there or not. And discipline is what most people are lacking. So don't ask yourself, how can you be motivated? Screw that. Ask yourself, how can I build more discipline? Hey everyone again. I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I enjoyed my conversation with him. I think we can all agree that he has some incredible stories and he has had an incredible life. All of the links that were mentioned in the interview are in the show notes, so just go to the show notes and you can go to his website. You can go buy the book, which I highly recommend. And additionally, if you have not yet done so, go to our website, subscribe to our newsletter. We send out a newsletter twice a month, no more, just to give you updates on everything that's going on. Additionally, wherever you may have listened to this podcast, please subscribe to make sure that you receive the new episodes every week right to your phone. And last, but most definitely not least, please write a review. It helps us a lot. And share this with anyone and everyone that you think this may help. Thank you and have an awesome, awesome day.